Today, Charts Today comes to you from the Bahamas. It's just great to be here on this beach before going back and looking at my charts in the hotel. And I thought I'd just share my morning walk with you before we look at the charts. So it's Friday, the 5th of May, and I'm now back in my room and looking at what's going on in markets. And of course, the really big story is the regional banks. We're seeing several regional banks making new lows, and it's almost certain that we're going to see some more bank failures. PacWest, top of the list, but and a lot of these stocks have fallen since the beginning of last year. These are all indexed to 100, falling some 90, 93%. So really big moves here. So we're almost certainly going to see more bank failures in the US. But what's really concerning is what the big four are doing, and specifically Bank of America, and we're seeing that there. We'll look at gas prices at the end as well. Have they found a floor? No. So we'll go through our normal list of currencies, stock markets, and then commodities and currencies at the end. So looking at the Bank of America stock, really all you have to do is just press the T key. You're going to get instant gratification. We've got downside targets of 24.5975. That's on the 0.25 cent chart. So here we're seeing a half a cent chart. We'll activate this new downside target to 8. That's taking us back to where we were in the financial crisis. We hit a low of 5 there. So it looks like Bank of America shares are going to really hit these lows. We've got targets to 19, 20. We're currently sitting at 27, but we're going to see 17.5, 8. And if we go lower, still 9.75. So really that $10 level is looking pretty likely based on the charts. Now, a lot of people are saying I'm scaremongering. It's just what the chart's saying. I can't ignore what the charts are saying. So the banking crisis has not gone away. Now, looking at the US dollar, really key level here is the lows that we saw in February. We are now below the cloud on the weekly chart. This is my weekly, my daily, and my 60-minute, my long-term, medium-term, and short-term view of the market. So really, we cannot ignore the fact that the dollar is slowly deteriorating, and we have activated this downside target. We've been below the cloud for several months, of course, and we've got downside targets on the short-term chart as well, and we're below the cloud. So the outlook is not good. And looking at the euro, of course, we saw the rise in interest rates in Eurozone. A lot of volatility around that yesterday, but we are just seeing again, conversely, that the euro is now breaking above the weekly cloud, and it is nudging the new high. So the euro makes up a very high percentage of the dollar index, so it's quite significant that we are seeing that move there. So that's a lead indicator, if you like, for the dollar weakness. Looking at sterling, we're sitting at 126.10. That's the highest level we've seen for a while. So that's really looking very strong now. We're back to sort of levels that were at a year ago. So sterling looking stronger on that weaker dollar, and of course the expectations that we will see an interest rate rise in the UK next week are pretty high, given that UK inflation is still sitting at 10%, which is really much higher than we're seeing in Europe and America. Looking at Bitcoin, we're sitting at $29,000, just can't break back above that $30,000 level, but we are bullish on the short-term chart. No clear targets to the upside there, short-term, but medium-term, we've got these targets to 34 and then $50,000 is the big one. So we've got a lot of work to do to get there, but the reality is those targets are in place. Now, looking at the markets, we're seeing the S&P future sitting at 4,000, just struggling to break above that 4,200 level, the previous high. And so that's really significant. We're hitting cloud resistance there. We are still below the clouds on the weekly charts in the US for the US stocks. So that is significant, and that we have got this short-term fall away here as well, and so that's quite key. And we're looking at, and of course the banking crisis will not help that if we do see lower lows and fears of contagion creeping in. Now, looking at the Nasdaq, we are looking better here, and we have which is still struggling to break the 22 low, but we do have upside targets, so we are looking better on the Nasdaq. And of course, that is really driven by the majors. I mean, a handful of stocks makes up more than half of the Nasdaq, and in fact, a very high percentage of the S&P 500. So we are seeing, for example, Apple looking still pretty good, got good upside targets there. That's what's holding the market up. Stocks like Apple and Microsoft. Now, looking at the UK market, the FTSE future sitting at 7740 this morning. The key thing here is this failure to make a new high. The high in February looking like a lower high. That's a worry. And although we're above the cloud on all of the charts except for the 60-minute, that is quite key that we're just struggling to make that high. We've got a downside target some 2% lower. So that's quite key. The DAX in Germany up 0.5%, so looking a little bit better here today. Just a shortage of upside targets. We've got one here, some 13% higher, but that's really quite key. And looking at Asia, we saw a pretty mixed picture actually. We're up 0.5% in Hong Kong, down 0.5% in China, and down 0.7% in India, although this market is still looking pretty strong above the cloud and never really having dipped below even, so quite key there. And the Aussie market up 0.4%, so that's pretty good overnight. We'll look at the energy mix in a minute. Looking at gold, holding on to that 2,000 level. We've got targets to 2,346, 2,100. We are starting to see gold holding that 2,000 level quite convincingly, and that's looking pretty good. We may not even dip back below 2,000 now. And of course, what we really need is new highs, which we're close to. Silver nudging the 26 level, and again moving above the cloud there, so that's looking really strong now. So silver, and we will have a very nice big upside target. This takes us to about 42. You can actually put the target on there, and you can see $42.50. So pretty strong, and activated there to 42.30 on the chart. So that's quite key as well. US 10-year yield sitting at 3.38% this morning. Still a tussle between the medium and long-term charts, but we've got targets in both directions. Market is still fairly undecided as to which way we're going to see. We are long-term bullish, medium-term bearish, and those two trends are fighting each other at the moment. Now, looking at the energy mix, we start by looking at Brent crude. Starting to see a little bit of a bottom fall here after quite big downside targets. We've still got further downside potential into the low 70s, but we are starting to see on the 60-minute chart a reactive move back to the mid 70s, so that's quite key. Keep an eye on your 1-minute charts over here. Looking at WTI, it's a similar picture. 70 is the level on Brent, and 65 is the level on WTI. So those are the keys, but we look like we're forming a little bit of base as we close out for the weekend. Gas prices in the US, we are just nudging this $2 level, so falling away there. That's really quite significant. And emissions, we were neutral today because we have new upside targets. In our morning call to clients, we were neutral. We have got this upside target, but we did find a lower low, which is not good news. We are still below the cloud on the daily and the 60-minute, so that's the backdrop that we're looking at. Now, gas prices, the picture is clearer. TTF, we've got downside targets all moving lower into the mid-low 30s and targets to 27, 28 euros. So really still pretty bearish, new lows to be had. And the same is true of MBP. We've got lows here as well. These downside targets were met, but we are sinking to new lows. And again, we've got levels here, 58 and 68. So quite a lot of potential further falls as well. And looking at German power, at the Cal 24, we've got targets here. This range of 140, 150 is pretty key. It looks like 140 could easily break now. And given those gas lows, that's quite key too. That's it for today. Back in the UK on Tuesday. Monday's a holiday for the King's coronation, which is tomorrow. And so have a great long weekend if you're in the UK. See you on Tuesday. Bye for now.